3, 2, 1. Welcome to the David the Dog Trainer Podcast, episode 173.
You've had a day.
Yeah. I'm on the hold with the fucking electric company for 6 hours or something like that.
Very much so. That's terrible.
But guess what? We're going to put it to the side.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I just listened to that Joe Rogan podcast with Adam Sandler. You said you listened to it. Do you remember when they were talking about, like, before they go on stage, sometimes they'll watch something or listen to something that just kind of puts them in a mood. Yeah. And then they go and just tank it on stage.
Yeah.
I feel like that right now. I feel like that's why we had to wait so long to start this. Josh got here at 3:30. It's now 5:10.
Is it?
It's 5:10 right now. Because I feel like I had to let myself, like, get the negativity of dealing with the electric company, like, out of my head so that we could do a good podcast episode. So I think we're ready.
Yeah. Yes.
I think we're ready.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I just got back from Connecticut. And, I've talked a lot on this podcast before about how, we have family out there. We go out there regularly. This was the very first time that we decided to schedule lessons while I was out there. Start advertising, hey, I'm out here. I'm going to be out here all the time. So if I have people out here that want to do some training, let's make it happen.
Let's do it.
Let's freaking do it. Yeah. So it wound up being unbelievably productive. It honestly couldn't have went better. It was I wound up doing like 13 hours of lessons while I was out there. It was supposed to be 14 hours of lessons, but one of the clients that booked wound up getting sick. The owner got sick, and they canceled it. So whatever, we'll see him. We'll see him next time or do something virtually with them. But it was really great. Worked with a ton of dogs. It was a really interesting experience because I'm going into this new place where, we don't have a reputation. I don't know all the, like when I do training out here, I know, like, okay, if I need to work on dog reactivity, I go here to work on it, right? If I need to socialize dogs, I have a training center that I can do it at, right? If I need to work on anything, I already have pictures in my brain of how I'm going to go about doing that. Yeah. And I was just, it was like going back to like the OG days of things where it's like client comes in, these are the issues, and it's like on the fly, I got to come up with like solutions of how we're going to work through this kind of stuff. Yeah. Right. And I ran into some like really interesting situations, not from the standpoint of like really complex, difficult dogs or anything like that, but interesting situations of where I was training and how I needed to navigate working past certain problems that ultimately the clients were hiring me for, right?
Sure.
So what I want to do today is we'll kind of go through some of those. We'll talk a little bit about them, and I'll kind of share some of the success stories and some of the things that we did to help get them. So let's start off by talking about one client in particular. And before I talk about it, I'm going to pull up. She already actually left as a review. So I'll read the review here, and then we'll talk about the journey. This was the dog that I worked with the most while I was out there. So this individual, Danielle, she has 2 dogs, and she reached out to me before I got out there, obviously, was interested in doing training. And this is really the only dog I created a true like program for while I was out there, right? So we wound up doing 3 sessions, 2 hours each. So we did 6 hours in total with this client. And we really had a lot of time to work through the issues. Yeah. When she originally hired me, she has 2 dogs, like a black lab and this like slightly older, like 8 or 9 year old kind of hound lab pit mix thing, right?
Yeah.
Tons of issues. She was very nervous about, what she was going to expect. And I'll read the review here, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of the work that we did with them. So Danielle says, 2 days ago, I had the chance to train with David when in Connecticut this past week. At the beginning, I was desperate for any help with my 2 reactive dogs. By the end of the first session, I had hope and actually enjoyed working with my dogs for the first time in a long time. By the end of the 3rd session, my lab was doing off-leash recalls and playing with other dogs. My dog reactive female was holding a stay while dogs were around her and came up to her. This dog would turn crazy at the sight of another dog barking and lunging, and now is sitting while dogs she has never met before are all around her. If you think all hope is lost with your own dogs, send a message and get in touch with David. He can work magic with dogs. Highly recommended. right? Ooh. So super cool, fantastic. And honestly, the feedback from everybody was awesome. I obviously asked everybody to write a review, so a lot of them said yes. They should be coming soon. I'm excited to share them with you guys. But we'll talk about hers first, because hers was interesting. She, first and foremost, longtime follower of our YouTube channel, which is awesome. That's how she found us. Through YouTube, listened to the podcast, heard that we were talking about coming into town, reached out to book something, and trusted us enough to do a full program. I think a lot of times when you have some random guy coming into town for a week saying, hey, I'm offering dog training, it does take a lot of trust to be able to commit to a full, custom program. We're really squeezing a lot of training into a small timeline, right?
Really.
So obviously didn't really know where I was going to be doing a lot of training out there. Obviously, I know the immediate area where we generally stay, where Kate's family is from. But it's not the most ideal location to be doing formal training. It's good for walks. There's a lot of, foot traffic and stuff in that area. But as far as kind of doing a little bit of everything, working off leash stuff, working walk stuff, working social stuff, all of that, didn't know much about it. So I did a little bit of research, talked to some people that I knew out there, came up with this place called Winslow Park was going to be where we were going to do our training at.
Okay.
And in my mind, when I started researching Winslow Park, basically what it sounded like to me is, I don't know if you remember the parks in Columbus we used to do training at that were like normal city parks, but they were kind of a little loose with the leash laws, but like it was still just like a normal park. People went there to hang out. People went there to have picnics. People went there to walk their dogs. Yeah. And there was like kind of quasi off leash areas that the dogs can be in as well. Right? So I was kind of expecting it to be similar to that. I get there. This place is a full on like, I think it was like 9 acres or something like that, God. Maybe more.
Yeah.
Basically full on off leash dog park.
Wow.
Like it was, we got there and we pull in the parking lot and I'm just like looking around and I'm like, and it was packed too. It's in Westport, Connecticut, which is like a really ritzy, nice area.
Yeah.
And there is just like person after person coming into the parking lot, just whipping their door open. Dogs go fucking tearing into this park. Chaos everywhere. Just pure madness, right?
Oh, no.
And this girl, I remember when I first told her, yeah, let's do it at Winslow Park. She's like, yeah, well, there's a lot of off-leash dogs there. So, I'm a little nervous about my one dog. Doesn't generally do too well with other dogs. And, I was like, let's feel it out. Let's see how it goes, right? So we get there, and the first session, we kind of stayed out of that area. There was a small leashed area that we were able to stay in, obviously. And we're walking. The one dog had never been on an e-collar before, so we're kind of introducing that dog to an e-collar. The other one had done some, like, very brief training with another trainer, had an e-collar, stuff like that. So we're tightening things up, working things, stuff like that. And both dogs were just very reactive. The lab, not aggressive, but just like, I think she said it best when she said, like, this dog just got, like, crazy FOMO, basically.
Yeah.
Where he would see other dogs and just get freaking jacked up, right? No impulse control, no ability to keep him to calm it down. The other dog was just an anxious mess, just all over the place, tail tucked the whole time, just, like, terrified, would get very reactive when she saw other dogs. So first and foremost, we just had to get some communication established. We worked the walking. We got these dogs focused on her. We worked past some distractions. We started kind of inching closer and closer to where the dogs were to start kind of, making sure that they could keep their shit under control, right?
Yeah.
And something really interesting happened, right? So we were walking, and we're in the parking lot at this point, and somebody was coming out with these 2, like, doodle mixes, right? Or whatever, poodles, whatever you want to call them. And they kind of started coming up to her dogs while she was walking. I was like, all right, just stay calm. Just, stay loose on your leashes. Just keep enforcing what it is that you're asking them to enforce. And these dogs, like, didn't, like, completely bombard her dogs, but they were, like, right up in their business.
Okay.
Getting close to them.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And her dogs naturally started reacting. We were able to correct the reactions, get them back on track. And I don't know if this is something I think we know as dog trainers, but sometimes we don't put enough emphasis on, which is, imperfect situations generally are going to happen sometimes. And though, my rule of thumb when I go out in public is I ensure dogs don't come up to my dogs. I ensure that, I ensure they're not put into those like difficult situations. I also am very confident that hypothetically, if that situation were to present itself at some point, my dogs would be able to keep themselves under control still. Yeah. I know that I've run into a million situations before where I'm on a patio, my dog's in a downstay, another dog's walking by on leash, and they're pulling so hard to try to get to my dog. And they don't get all the way up to them, but they're like 2 feet away from them, right? And my dogs hold their downstay, and they stay focused on me, and they don't react back towards those dogs, right? So seeing her dogs have this like intense reaction to that moment kind of put into perspective for that situation, like this is something we need to proof for, right? Especially given the climate of out here in some of these parks and things like that. We've got to make sure, one, she understands how to keep herself out of those situations, but two, the dogs understand how to keep themselves under control if they do run into a situation like that, right? So we actually kind of diverted plan a little bit, and especially that the one was pretty social to begin with, and the other one actually needed some socialization help. We utilized the dog park to kind of kill two birds with one stone, right? So we actually went into it where initially we were kind of expecting like, just ignore the other dogs, right? Don't react at the other dogs. Let's just work walking, to let's use this as an opportunity to make sure we can keep them under control, but also socialize these dogs and improve their tolerance to things. So this girl can start trusting her dog to be able to increase their social bubble, right? So as we progressed through the sessions, that's kind of what we did. We started each session with walking. We started in the leashed area where we could work on sit stays, leash walking, letting other dogs pass by, actually closing that bubble and getting like as close to the other dogs as we could where we could still keep them under control, right? We progressed to the off-leash section where we took her dogs off-leash, right? We focused on off-leash healing, sit stays, things like that, and actually got them interacting with the other dogs at that park, right? Nice. And it was really, really cool to see these dogs progress and go from being really reactive, not under control at all, to hitting a point where, like she said, I mean, there's videos we posted that if my phone wasn't dead right now, I would show, of her dogs literally like walking with her, holding a sit, and like a pack of 6 dogs just running past them. Right? Wow. Or, one of those dogs coming over and like sniffing one of them and them holding their, sit stays in that moment and keeping themselves under control and not reacting. Yeah. And then past that, allowing them to then go off leash and play with these other dogs and hang out. Right? It was a really, really cool thing that we were able to kind of make happen with these dogs. And I think that pushing that envelope a lot with them and showing her how to control them in the situation that made her the most stressed out, which was off leash, was one of the coolest things that we were able to do. And I think is something that's missing a lot, Yeah.
I feel like, especially because you only had a certain amount of time too, you're like, hey, we got to go full bore into this, and it had to push her like out of the comfort zone. Like, hey, we got to do this so we can get through it quickly. And like, and I mean, look at the difference that you got in what'd you say, 4 hours?
6.
6 hours.
6 in
Still
total.
6 hours. You change you changed the dogs to a 180. Just because you were able to kind of push those boundaries a little bit because you had to.
Yeah, and it's a balance. Like I told her while we were doing them, like, and this will get to it, like as we talk about some of these other dogs, obviously, but like I told her we're breaking. We're breaking a lot of like dog trainer rules doing this, like as dog trainers, we say, and I've even said before, like never let dogs come up to your dog, right? Like you're in control of it. Don't allow them to invade in that space. I've said, don't take your dog to dog parks before. Right? I've said, avoid places like that, which I still stand 100% firm behind, right? But there are situations where you've got, like in my case, like I didn't have a facility out there that I could go about doing socialization with these dogs, right? I didn't have a bunch of dogs at my disposal where I could go about in a really controlled way, working distractions and stuff like that. I kind of had to work with what I had a bit. Yeah. And there were absolutely some scenarios where we were doing it and it's like I could tell just like this chaos going on over here is just it's not the right fit,
Yeah.
right? So like we diverted and we went somewhere else. And luckily this place was big enough. It's not like a traditional dog park where it's like you got basically a backyard space that you got 30 dogs crammed into. I mean, this place literally was like 9 or 10 acres. It's huge, you know? So there was more than enough space to give them breaks. There was more than enough space as you were walking by to assess like, oh, that group over there seems like they're really respectful. They're following the general rules of socialization, which is like not having toys out, creating much of drive. They're not like getting the dogs all riled up. They're kind of organically just letting them interact and stuff. So because of that, I was able to help her navigate which situations were good to go into and which ones weren't good to go into in a way where the dogs were going to progress, with the caveat that this is not something you're going to be doing all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, your dog needs socialization, but you're still going to follow a lot of our rules that we say of like just doing it with like friends you know and trust and stuff, because I know how to navigate those situations you don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Very much so.
But it was super cool, you know? And I think getting back to pushing that envelope more than most people would push that envelope helped the dogs make so much more rapid progress and overcome these issues a lot quicker. Because it's like one of those things.
Exactly.
I talk about training, and sometimes as dogs are moving through the training process and getting better, you'll get to like a plateau with things where it's like you accomplish like such a good amount of progress, and they're they've made such an amount of progress where it's like they're doing great, but they can't quite get over this last like hurdle right here. And I think sometimes we stay at that level of difficulty, whether it's trying to walk like 20 feet past another dog or hold a sit stay 20 feet past another dog or something like that, where going from like that to like right up in their space, right? Like right up, as difficult as the distraction can possibly get, I think helped them overcome that hurdle so that when she went back to work on it at home in between those sessions that we were doing and was 20 feet away, because she already accomplished it in the most difficult situation possible.
True.
And her dogs accomplished it in the most difficult situation possible. It made it so much easier for her to do it than on her own.
Yeah.
It's
like we went through that. I mean, we can go through almost anything.
100%, And then it's like the missing link with like so many of these situations. Again, we'll move on to some of these other dogs, is just every single person that I meet that uses an e-collar is just, they're so averse to using it at a motivating enough level. They can't get past it. Like this lab that she had e-collar training before, right? And same deal. Like he was very responsive to the e-collar, but she was trying to use it. She had like a dog tray, which goes up to 127. She's using it at like 30. And it's like working for some things, but it's just when he gets in the zone, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right? And all we needed to do was tighten up her timing a bit and get her to really ramp the level up to a level that he was motivated enough by. And by the end of it, he didn't need to get corrected.
Yeah.
And I feel like I could say it till I'm blue in the face that that's the missing link in a lot of these cases. And I don't know sometimes what the solution is as far as getting people to realize it, because we are just in such a weird place in the dog training world where it's like everybody that uses e-collars it's just getting worse and worse, where they're just preaching like, it's just communication. It's just communication. I did a business consult with somebody the other day, and they're talking, oh yeah, we get the dog's condition down to a 4 on the e-collar. And it's like, nothing against them, obviously, but it's like, that's cool, but it's like we're using like how low we could work on the e-collar as this like flex of like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Where it's like, I don't want to have to use it at all.
Exactly.
I don't want to have to use it at all, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to have to use it as the leash where I'm constantly, come over here, do this. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like I want them to just learn the boundaries,
Yeah.
right? In every one of these situations, that's exactly what I ran into.
Yeah, and I feel like when you do that, it's like you're this nagging little thing like to your dog where, you make the one clear boundary, and now they have way more freedom.
Yeah.
Because they know the boundary.
Totally.
And they don't have to worry about it anymore.
100%. It's interesting. They in the last podcast episode that we did, we were talking about the muzzle training, and I think at one point in it, you made the comparison of like breaking horses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And did you see this comment? It was like a couple hours ago.
Oh, no.
So we got this comment from somebody a couple hours ago saying, the horse training world no longer calls it breaking. It's just called training now. The horse world has also moved along the same trajectory as dog training. More time spent on groundwork, gaining compliance, rather than just jumping on and fighting the horses until they break. Right? And I'm actually, no offense to this person, obviously, because I'm not entirely sure how much she's disagreeing versus agreeing with what we're saying in it.
Yeah.
but I interpret this as like, the horse training world no longer calls it breaking. It's just called training now. It's like, yeah, sure. Okay. That's fine. Right. Yeah. But it's the same thing. It's still, you're still we're changing the terms because the horse world is also moving along the same trajectory as dog training, which is like you have fucking force-free horse trainers out there. Seriously. That's like a thing, right? There's, obviously Devin's into horses, right?
Yeah.
Like there's force-free horse trainers out there. And, in effort to fight against, like how ridiculous of an agenda there is, we're changing the terminology that we're using. We're trying to make all the things that we're doing seem nicer than they actually are. I'm sure there's still conversations with like the bits where there's people that are like, horse training, no, the bits are no longer this really aversive correction thing that we're using, and they really are just like gentle communication and guidance, and it doesn't hurt the horse. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, as opposed to just calling it what it is. And again, like I don't know what the solution is for it. I really don't. And sometimes it can be very discouraging because it's like, because I see, okay, so these two dogs, right? We massive strides, right? Another dog I worked with, this dog Gypsy, right? Videos of it, same deal. Stupidly reactive, like Bernedoodle mix.
Okay.
Right? Crazy reactive dog. This dog lives a couple houses down from my mother-in-law, right? So we kind of know them a little bit. We know how much they've struggled with this dog. I've never worked with the dog before. They've worked with 3 trainers now, right? 3 trainers. Force-free trainers, balance trainers, the kind of in-between trainers, and like nobody can help them get past things with this dog, right? Okay. We did one session. We did 1 hour-long session with this dog, right? And literally what it was she was nagging the dog with the leash, nagging the dog with the e-collar, giving all these like, kind of warnings instead of just correcting for what they didn't want. And all we did, I remember I told her, let's go for a walk. I want to see what you're doing, right? Take him for a walk. She's trying to nag him into a heel position. Yeah. The dog then sees a dog at the corner and just starts almost ripping her down, like trying to get over to this dog reacting. I was like, give me your e-collar. Give her the e-collar, right? I was like, now just go loose on your leash, right? Hold just the handle of it right now. Holds the handle, dog darts to the end. I say no. I turn it up. I think she had a dog tray as well, actually. Turn it up to probably 95 or something like that. Corrected the dog twice for it. The dog was like, whoa. Yeah. That was new, right? Immediately stopped. Yeah. Immediately stopped. Then we went for a walk. Tons of dogs were out because it was a beautiful day. We passed like 3 more dogs, had to correct each time for those for lunges. Each lunge got less and less dramatic, right? And then we walked for literally 45 minutes. We passed by probably 15 dogs, 20 dogs, not a single reaction because we inhibited the response. Then the dog was really food motivated. We were pumping this dog full of rewards, right? Like reconditioning the attention onto us then at that point, but we had already stopped the behavior. Yeah. Right? We stopped the behavior, then we focused on reinforcing the proper thing, and we got past it. This was probably like 6 days before I left Connecticut, so I saw her obviously over those 6 days. Kate and her mom were out walking the dogs, right? And this dog has historically always reacted at them, like crazy reactions, right? Literally walked all the way up to them, had a full conversation with her. The dog didn't even make a peep. And then these neighbors that have the notoriously psycho dogs, these 2 like small white dogs, walked by, dogs going ballistic at her dog. Her dog didn't even do anything. Literally did nothing, right? And she literally told my mother-in-law, she's like, I'm just so mad that I didn't do this sooner. She said, I spent so much money on training with all of these other trainers in 1 session, and this is what I have now. Like, she couldn't even believe it. Yeah. And it wasn't like I was there. I wasn't even there. Yeah. Right? It worked. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And again, the solution was tell the dog no. Just tell the dog no. Yeah. Just create a boundary, make it motivating, and get past it. Yeah. Get it under control.
Get it under control.
You know what I mean? And then all the fun can happen after.
Yeah. And that's exactly what like we were just talking about earlier. It's like you set that boundary in that right there, and the dog figured it out. And then he was good. And then you pumped him full of treats.
Figured it out.
And he was happy, and everyone was happy.
And on the let's look at the contrast now, right? So I talked to somebody this morning. I'm on the phone with somebody, got a contact for him. She was very distraught when I talked to her. She's got this dog. She's had the dog for a month or 2 now, right? And the dog is nuts. Just nuts, right? Absolutely fucking nuts.
Yeah.
The dog is so reactive. The dog is getting more reactive by the day. She's got a neighbor that lives behind her that has 2 reactive dogs. Her dog is basically now trying to like jump the fence to get to their dogs to like attack them.
Yeah.
The daughters who are like 16 and 17 take the dog out on a leash. The dog's like now starting to like redirect on them, and they have scratches all over them and stuff. Yeah. And she was just like, I just don't know what to do. She said, I'm so stressed out right now. She said, I'm so scared right now. She's like, I'm scared to have people come into my house. Yeah. I'm scared what happens if this fence breaks. She's like, I had a fence contractor come out, quoted me $10,000 to put up a more secure fence just in case. She's like, I just don't know what to do. Yeah. And I was like, ma'am, I can help you. I can.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, I could stop this stuff probably pretty rapidly. Yeah. Right. Because I get it. It's hard. I understand, right? She was like, oh my God, thank you so much. I was like, I can get you started almost right away, right? I was like, all right, well, I just want you to review the 2 program options, see if you have any last questions on them, and we could talk further on it, right? And I send her the program options. She texts me right back, and she said, oh, I see you use e-collars. She said, that is really outside of my comfort level. And like, this is the person that, because it's outside of their comfort level, which, listen, that's a whole separate conversation. We could talk about, should it be out of your comfort level? Should it not be out of your comfort level? You know, I was talking to Michelle about it today, and Michelle's like, you know what's out of my comfort level? Your kid's getting bit by your dog because the dog is redirecting on them because it's reacting so much. But that's like the snarky response to it. Yeah. But like, this is unfortunately going to be the person that then goes to try to find a trainer that nices it over because they cater to that. They say, oh, no, don't be concerned about the e-collar. It doesn't hurt the dog. It's not, we don't use punishment with it. Yeah. You know, we don't correct the dog with it. We just communicate the dog with it. And then they totally lie to the customer. The customer gets fucking nowhere because I know the only way you are going to stop that issue in the backyard is if you make it very unpleasant for that dog to be reacting at that back fence. It's the only way you're going to get past it. Yeah. We can get past it really fucking quick. And we could alleviate all of those issues that you're having right now, but that is the only way that you're going to get past it. You're not going to counter condition this away. You're not going to redirect this away. You're not going to give the dog fucking snuffle mats out there, and it's going to suddenly just, like want to like go play with its snuffle mat instead of react to those other dogs. It's the only way you're going to get past it. And if you don't, somebody is going to get hurt, whether your kids, whether the other dogs, whether your dog, because it picks a fight with those other 2 dogs who are much bigger than it. You know what I mean? Like it's going to take something really bad happening before you realize, oh, wow, we have to get this under control now. And it doesn't matter how it gets done. It just needs to get done. Yep. Right. But she'll go to the 3 other trainers. Right. She'll find ones that are a little bit more emotionally appealing, that sound nicer, and cater to her instead of making her realize the serious position that she's in right now with her dog. And it's tough, man. And I think the problem is just the sugar coating that's just going on right now. It's just,
I agree with you, man.
You know, sometimes I feel like the lone soldier out there, just like still trying to preach the word that like, you can correct your dog. You can,
There's not very many of you, for sure.
Man, it's tough.
Yeah. And the fact that she doesn't even want to have like people like that don't want to have a conversation. Like,
I'm not giving up total hope on it. Like the conversation over the phone I had with her was great. Yeah. It was great. Like we talked about it. She even said like, oh my God, I feel so relieved. So maybe it's an education thing, And I told her, I was like, listen, what you need to do right now, I was like, go like read some of our reviews, right? Read about people who have been in the same situation as you and how they felt. Yeah. And this one literally said, I felt hopeless, before. And get a feel for it, like we could actually help you, right? From there, if you want to talk about specifics of training and stuff like that, I'd be more than happy to, But it's like, damn, like, I don't know, it's just crazy when you see that much of a flip flop with it. So
some people have to learn the hard way.
Yeah,
that's what's, like you said, is probably going to happen.
So obviously the 2 dogs obviously crushed it. They both did great. Gypsy, that dog, crushed it, did great. I mean, that was a really cool one to see because it was literally, we had an hour together. Yeah. Right? And we made so much progress in that hour. It was nuts. And especially, you know, anytime they've been to that many other trainers before and they could see how quickly, it's like the most relieving thing, but the most frustrating thing at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's like, holy shit, like I spent so much money on these trainers, you know? And then she's telling me like all the things these trainers are having to do, like, to scatter the treats on the ground so they can go hunt for them. And, you know, the e-collar should never go above a 20 because if it's going above a 20, you missed all these other things you need to correct for, which, yes, correcting for some of those other things can help you gain a little bit of leverage. But in the end of the day, it's not going to make that much of a difference, you know? And just all sorts of stuff like that. So whatever. So that dog too, worked with a client. Her name's Morgan. Had this Australian Shepherd. Same deal. We went to. She's actually one of the ones that recommended we go to Winslow Dog Park or Winslow Park, because that's somewhere that she regulars. She lives right around the corner from it, and she said, you know, like this is where I go, and I'm having issues there specifically, and I want to know how to work through those. Same deal. It had multiple trainers before, did a board and train with this dog and everything. And her dog basically would be just a total asshole towards unneutered males, right? That were at the dog park.
Okay.
And like would like, not those dogs weren't doing anything to her dog. Her dog would just like seek out conflict, right? And get really snarky towards them. And if she was trying to walk the dog nicely to where it was, the dog would go like freak out and start charging at the unneutered dogs and stuff. And it's like, this is a dog, getting back to like breaking dog trainer rules. Like a lot of dog trainers would look at that situation and say, well, you can't go there anymore. Right?
Right.
Which I've definitely told people before, you have to stop going to the dog park. I've absolutely said that before. But this dog wasn't that bad. This dog was being a dick. This dog wasn't aggressive. And the other thing too is like, know your client. This client was just she's going to go there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no getting around it.
Yeah.
So let's try to teach her. Let's work with her a little. Let's meet her halfway. Let's get her to make some adjustments, understand why the dog is rehearsing the behaviors that it's rehearsing, and let's give her some like, I don't know. Let's give her some pointers on how she can make her experience there much better, right? So what did we do? First and foremost, I realized that she's taking the dog there, and the first thing that she does when she goes there, she takes her chuck it out and she starts throwing the chuck it for the ball. So she gets the dog into this overly adrenalized prey drive state of mind, right? Totally counterintuitive to playing with other dogs, right? On top of that, the dog had zero discipline as far as dropping the ball for her when she asked, stuff like that. So we fixed that problem. I told her, all right, here's your first rule. No more playing chuck it when you're in the off-leash dog park area.
Yeah.
I said, if you want to go somewhere where there's not going to be other dogs around and play that, that's fine. We'll put some rules to it. I taught her how to teach the dog a better drop it or a better out command. And, you know, we worked through that. But that was thing number one. Let's make this a little easier. Let's make this more of a natural social for the dogs. Yeah. Right? From there, we talked about setting the tone when she gets out of the car. And instead of letting the dog go just balls to the walls, jump out of the car and tear into the off-leash dog park area, let's create a little bit of structure and work on an off-leash heel up to that area. Yeah. Did that, set the tone there, beautiful, great. Now let your dog be free. And when you let the dog be free, her dog is kind of like a sensitive, jumpy Aussie who like you tap it at like a 4 on the mini educator and it's like jumping and yipping and stuff, right? Yeah. But on these big situations, it was nowhere near enough. So she would try to keep it at that level because she's seen the dog work so low historically in the past, and she would never get on him over the really intense like snapping and like bullying that the dog would do to other dogs. Yeah. So once the dog was finally off leash, I taught her how to correct the dog more firmly for the reactivity. We corrected it once or twice, then the dog was so polite with every other dog that we saw, right? Damn. Same deal. Worked with her for 2 hours. We wound up, I touched base with her a couple days later. She was able to take the dog back multiple times since our session before. Saw multiple unneutered males. She said the dog also didn't like German Shepherds, saw German Shepherds, no problems. She said she had to correct the dog one time at a higher level after our session. After that was great, was playing fine with the ball outside of that. Solution was a little bit of adjustment on her end of how she was socializing the dog, and then getting on the dog a little bit over the behaviors it was not allowed to do.
Yeah. Jeez.
You know, just like easy solutions.
Yeah. That one's interesting too, because like you said, setting the tone, like right off the bat, like, when a lot of people take their dogs to a park, it's the same thing. Like, it reminds me of when you used to play with Vinny, like every time he saw a field, he's like, I know what we're doing, and it's like, time. And so, you're accidentally just amping your dog into this crazy state. So. Yeah.
And if I look at like the rules, I've talked about it before in our socialization episodes. My rules for like if you're going to socialize your dog on your own, whether it's in your backyard, whether it's at a friend's house, whatever, is step number 1, make sure you have control over your dog around the thing you're about to socialize them with, right? In this case, it's other dogs.
Yeah.
Right? So setting the tone of when you get out of the car, making the dog walk very strictly all the way up to the area you're going to be letting them socialize in and holding them firmly accountable for it is checking that box.
Yeah.
Right? It's making sure you're telling the dog, you have to pay attention to me more than the other dogs right now until I tell you can be free.
Yeah.
The next thing that I do is say, remove the resources, food, toys, affection, right? The ball that she was playing in that area, that was really the only resource that she was adding. She was doing a little bit of petting and stuff, which I told her make sure not to do when she's at that place. But we eliminated the resources, right?
Yeah.
From there, let the dogs do their thing and only correct if the dog does something egregious, right? We let them do their thing. And the dog did like 1 or 2 big reactions towards other dogs that were inappropriate. We corrected firmly for it. And after that, he was fine, right?
Yeah.
He would give a couple little minor corrections here or there, which were totally appropriate, wasn't doing anything egregious, and we let him just kind of communicate his boundaries and socialize fine after that.
Yeah.
So we followed still, though we broke the dog trainer rule of like we were in a dog park technically, we still followed all of the same rules of socialization.
Yeah.
Right? The only difference is, again, that's her place to do it. That's where she socializes her dog at. And we could fight the uphill battle of like, hey, this isn't the most ideal place. And we did talk about it a little bit while we were there, while we were walking around of, again, how to assess in a place like this, what groups are good groups to go socialize in versus which ones are not. But for the most part, we got her to meet us halfway and we met her halfway with stuff, which is the recipe for success with any clients that you're working with things.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great one. I worked with this dog, Zeke, who actually did a board and train with us recently, who lives in New York City in Brooklyn, only about an hour and a half from where I was staying in Connecticut. So we were able to make that work where I met up with him for about 3 hours. And same deal, like just fine-tuning things. Luckily, Bridget had done a really good job of coaching through, the send-home lesson and Zoom calls and stuff like that and getting him on the right track. He really just wanted to make sure he had some in-person help and take advantage of it while we were out there. So we did that. We were able to work some off-leash stuff with him. We were able to fine-tune helping him continue to overcome some of his anxiety issues and stuff because that was a big move for them when they moved from Cleveland to New York.
Yeah.
So we were able to kind of simulate a lot of the scenarios that they were struggling with and work through it, and it worked really well. But and then there was like 2 other clients that I worked with while I was out there. Similar things, fine-tuning obedience, working on some reactivity. Yeah. One was a Frenchie that I worked with that came down from Boston and spent a couple hours working with me. And one of the big things that they were having issues with was the Frenchie would basically try to bite her kids when they would try to get it into the crate because it didn't want to go in the crate, right?
Yeah.
So same deal. We're crate drills, right? Let's teach the dog the crate command, and then let's hold them accountable for not doing it. We did that. She sent me, same deal, a video the next day of all of her kids telling the dog to go in the crate and the dog just going right into the crate.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like
it's
one thing after another. And none of these were long, like drawn out, like, oh my God, 6-week fucking board and train to work past this and all this. And I'm not trying to make it sound like all their problems are totally just gone and solved. But the individual things that we worked on, we had solutions in place where as long as they maintained those solutions, they should not have problems with those things.
Yeah.
Exactly. Is there more things you could work on? 100%.
Yeah.
Right? But it was cool, Yeah. It was similar to like when we went up to Toronto and we were working with some of that kind of stuff and just really teaching everybody the kind of keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
We're just teaching the keep it simple, stupid. Let's not overcomplicate this.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about that quite a few times where it's just like people come in and sometimes people try to do an overarching kind of training, but it's like, oh, this is your problem. We're going to work on that problem.
Yeah.
You know, the rest can come later, but we want to fix this first, you know?
And again, always balance depending on the issues that we're dealing with. You know, there are definitely, in that comment that person left on YouTube, they said, you know, regarding the horse training, right? The horse world has moved along the same trajectory as dog training. More time spent on groundwork gaining compliance rather than just jumping on and fighting the horse until they break. Same deal with dogs, right? Like, yes, the more time we have, the more we could spend on groundwork, right? The more we could spend on, you know, teaching leash walking in a really quiet area, right? And gradually increasing distractions and stuff like that. But at some point, depending on the serious problems, right? When we're dealing with serious problematic issues, and I would assume this is the same with horses. I don't train horses, so don't quote me on all this kind of stuff, right? But I would assume there's a caliber of horse that comes along that just has either rehearsed these issues for just way too long, or their reactions to being told to do things that they don't want to do, or whatever it is, are just too intense, where you do have to just get that under control right off the rip. And then the ones that come in with more minor issues, like dogs that come in that it's like they just pull a little bit, or they're moderately reactive on the walk, right? Or they kind of jump a little bit on gas, or things like that. There's a lot more management you could put in place as you kind of work towards that,
for sure,
and gain some of that respect along the way, right? But yeah, I mean, in the end of the day, like, it's still, I remember when we did a podcast episode with that Kiba guy that one time.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yep.
Kiba canines, right? Like, he was a guy that, he's doing really cool things in the dog training world right now. Like I follow him still. He seems like he's really made a lot of strides in his dog training career. But like how we got connected was we posted a video of socializing, like a chocolate lab that had dog aggression issues, and he just commented on it and just was like, "This is horrible. You should never do it this way." But just like a you know, whatever, just throwing his opinion on something he didn't know anything about, right? And we had that kind of like healthy, friendly debate thing, you know, via the podcast that I think went really well, and I recommend people listen to, obviously. But I remember we hit a certain point where he was just trying to tell me, like, no, the way you're doing it is just, it's not as good as the way that I'm doing it, basically, you know? Like, and I remember at one point I just asked him, I was like, what's the harm, right? Like, why does it matter? You know, like, they're both achieving the same outcome. And it kind of was like, well, you know, and there wasn't like a clear answer to it. You know what I mean? Like, his concern at the point was like, you know, like, well, what you're doing is unsafe. And I was able to immediately alleviate like all of the concerns he had. I told him, I was like, well, we have this safety protocol, this safety protocol, this safety protocol, this safety protocol in place. He was like, oh, well, I didn't know that. I was like, yeah, because it was a 60-second video, right? Like, you didn't know that. You decided to throw your opinion into it, right? So a lot of people that give us shit online when they see like similar things of like this client that I worked with, you know, that worked with 3 other trainers before. I've said it a million times. Like, if I had that whole session, right, and showed it to some of these guys out there that are the vocal, like, oh, you know, you should really take your time with everything and not be so firm right off the rip. And these guys that just put e-collars on and hammer the dogs right in, blah, 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 they would be like, fuck you, you piece of shit. Everything you did is so wrong. I could have done it so, you just don't understand the dog and this and that. And like, you know, they would give all that. And I would ask the same question of like, what harm did I create? That woman is so happy right now that she could take her goddamn dog for a walk without it reacting at everything after she spent thousands of dollars on other trainers that tried to be so fucking nice and helpful, because there's people out there like you guys that are just shoving it down people's throats that if you correct these dogs firmly and do it quickly and get the job done fast, that they're, you know, somehow you're just doing something so horrendously wrong, you know? And in the end of the day, what's the harm? There's more harm doing it your way than my way.
Yeah.
Right?
I believe that.
Now, caveats to everything. Caveats to everything.
Yes.
Right? You know, sure, like if you do it all wrong and incorrect and this and that, like, you know, can you create more stress? Like, yeah, right? Like, can you temporarily make your problems worse? Like, yeah, but like everything we talk about should be under the guise of you're doing it correctly. I don't care if you're doing it the force-free way or not. And everybody says like, well, if you do it the force-free way and you do it incorrectly, there's a lot less that could really go wrong, right? Like your dog just gets fat. Or if you do it your way, you know, the dog just like, you know, that gets all stressed out and like shut down and stuff like that. And it's like, then do it correctly. Yeah. Then do it the right way. Right? Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, if you drive your car down the street wrong, you could kill 1 million people. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So learn how to do it correctly. Don't do that. I don't know. This is that electric company SaaS coming out now.
It is. You know? It is coming. Yeah, I mean, yet again, you could just like earlier, you could talk around that bush till you're blue in the face, you know?
Yeah.
But some people just are just going to be that way.
Yeah.
Just going to be that way about it. No matter what you say, I feel like it's
you can't win.
Yeah, you can't win.
Especially with social media. You know, you post clips. Another one we saw recently, Paige and Ella have been going through posting like a bunch of like greatest hits things, like throwbacks from like podcasts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there was one where we were talking about like, you know, a lot of big problems are caused with dogs by, you know, when they're puppies, when you go to like touch their feet or grab their paws, the puppy kind of gives you a little bit of a tantrum and then you stop.
Yeah.
Right. So basically what I was saying is like, that's a lot of the issue. Like in many of those situations, you really should just work through it. Like, oh, you don't like having your foot touched, right? Well, I'm going to keep touching it. Sorry. You know?
Yeah.
And like all these people on TikTok were like, this is the most dangerous advice I've ever seen in my life.
Jesus Christ.
But it's right. You know what I mean? You're just saying, well, if somebody does this wrong, you know, you're going to create more problems. It's like, so do it right. Learn how to do it right before you do it. This is my public service announcement to everybody of, if you ever hear me say something that I suggest you should do, right? First off, if you're taking like serious behavioral modification advice exclusively off of a podcast, like don't do that, right? Like I'm sure I've said that before, but like there's something there. You have bigger problems if you're trying to solve your dog training issues with a fucking comment on YouTube, right? Yeah. Like, and two, learn how to do it correctly before you go to do it.
Yeah.
Learn how to do it correctly.
Yeah. 100%. I know. Yeah. I don't know what to say to that other than some people are still going to try to do it.
Yeah. And that is the inevitable nature of it. You know what I mean? Like when I go fucking scroll on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram and I'm watching golf swing tutorials, right? Like, yeah, sometimes I'm just going to go try it and not, you know, learn to do it the correct way. And that's the inevitable nature of stuff. And it's like, the solution is then like, okay, dog trainers just don't make content. But like, no. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not my fault that there's people out there that are doing stupid stuff also.
Yeah.
Or not learning how to do things properly. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's good to get advice, maybe some like guidance. But if you really have a behavioral problem, you need to go get a trainer.
Yeah. You really should, you know? But then it's like, fuck, like I tell people, like my go-to lately, I used to answer everybody's questions in the comment section, right? Like I would give like detailed advice and things like that. And I haven't done that for years at this point. I'll talk about questions on the podcast and stuff where I can get into more context of things. But as far as comments and stuff, at this point, I'll have people like message on like 30-second clips and just be like, how do I stop my dog from attacking my fucking sister? And it's like, hire a trainer. But at the same time, it's like there's so many bad trainers out there. And when I say bad, I don't mean like horrible abusive or anything like that. I just mean they're going to be the ones you waste thousands of dollars on, like fucking Gypsy's owner, and don't get any results. That I feel bad when I say go find a trainer and they're going to go find a trainer and it's going to be a shit trainer. You know what I mean? Like, like go find a qualified trainer. But it's like, but what does that even mean? You know? Go find a trainer that has tons and tons of testimonials with people that have the same issue as you. Do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially like you guys, I think, how many?
270.
Yeah. There's got to be at least 5 probably of each kind of problem a dog can have, pretty
Probably
much.
more. Yeah.
Maybe more.
Probably more.
So
I don't know. So that was my experience in Connecticut. It was really awesome. It was really fantastic working with all these clients. But it's like how when I just said, like, you know, some of these clients, I'm sure it's so wonderful, but so frustrating when it's like, damn, it was that easy. But damn, it was that easy. You charged me this much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
it's the same for me sometimes when I go into these new situations and I'm like, damn, those lessons went really fucking well. That was pretty easy. But it's like, listen, I'll take the business, right? But like, why can other people not just actually help people with their problems in the dog training space?
I don't know. I mean, it's that way in every facet, I feel like.
Yeah.
Plumbers, dog trainers.
Do you think it's that way with plumbers?
Oh, yeah. There's some bad plumbers out there.
You got some bad plumbers out there?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched some plumber YouTubes.
Plumber YouTube videos.
But, I think what's really cool about this whole Connecticut thing, having so many people, it's cool. It's the cool part of the social media.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, all these people I got connected with basically through social media.
Yeah. Like that reach actually means something. It's not, these people are actually watching and it gave them enough sound advice. They're like, hey, you're going to be out here. I would love to actually get a lesson with you,
Yeah. So I'll be making more posts about Connecticut here. Paige is going to work on whipping up a video of all the content that I took while I was out there, and we'll keep promoting it. I think I'm going to be back in October probably. So anybody that's interested in signing up for lessons while I'm out there, I think moving into 2025, I don't want to like throw all my plans out there or anything like that, but I think moving into 2025, we're going to be really looking at making a big expansion into that area. So I'll be out there pretty frequently. I would assume next year, since that's the goal, I'll probably be out there a lot. So anybody in that area, the New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Boston area, I mean, all of that is within a 2-hour drive of where I'll be.
Yeah.
And we can come up with any sort of custom programs to kind of fit your timeline, to fit your schedule, stuff like that. So reach out to me, David at miraclecaninetraining.com. Leave a comment. We'll just get in touch in some way, shape, or form, and we'll kind of make that happen. But it was a great trip. It really was. And you guys got to hear the light, good successes, and then all my fucking frustrations with this goddamn industry sometimes, Mm-hmm. So.
Yep. I think the electric company really riled you up there.
Riled me up. It's got me riled up.
Yep.
So
cool.
That's all I got. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yes, sir.
See ya.
Bye.